Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So good day, everybody. This is just a wonderful day for all of you. At least for me, I'm here today to introduce you to Scott Shute, who I've known for many years. Scott has a very interesting journey from Kansas to California. So Scott, I will let you kind of begin and give us your story.
My story. Well, first of all, hi Bruce. Thanks for having me. Hi everybody. Good to be with you. I'm Scott. Yeah, sure. Well, I'll work backwards. I had a really interesting job at LinkedIn. I was at LinkedIn for almost a decade, and my last role there, I was the head of mindfulness and compassion programs, which is not standard. But how did I get there? Well, I grew up on a farm in Kansas, and I made my way to Silicon Valley, got an engineering degree at a state school, and came to Silicon Valley, and spent my career in first sales and then in tech support or customer service leadership. Long time after I ended up at LinkedIn, I was the VP of Global Customer Operations during kind of the growth heyday of LinkedIn. When I started, there were 1,500 employees, and when I left 3 years ago, there were 20,000 or so.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. And I had a big team. I had a team of over 1,000 people. It was one of those 24/7 types of jobs. That's part of me, but there's this other part. I've had a contemplation, a meditation practice since I was 13. It's been a huge part of my life. And at LinkedIn, I volunteered first just to bring some of that to work. I started by leading one meditation session, and I'm sure there was that first time there was just one other guy there. It was just me and him. And I'm sure that dude was just as terrified as I was because I never saw him again. But it the next week there were three, and then there were five, and then it just grew and grew. I started getting invited to bigger and bigger things. Like the CFO would have an offsite with 200 or 300 finance people and ask me to kick it off with a meditation. And it would happen like that. And I did that for 3 or 4 years. And then our CEO gave the commencement address at Wharton, right? Very buttoned down Wharton. And he talked about compassion, about how compassion was the most important thing that you could do in your career, both for your life and your for career. And I thought, wow, that's pretty brave. That's pretty bold. Next day, he's on TV. He's on Good Morning America talking about compassion again. This is all they want to talk about. And when he got home, I made him a pitch. And from there, we created this job together. We created this role, head of mindfulness and compassion programs, because I'm the operations guy. I told him I could operationalize compassion. So I did that for a few years. And then during COVID times, I wrote a book to describe what does it even mean to be compassionate in the workplace. The book is called The Full Body Yes. And then I've been out in the world for the last few years, trying to help other leaders and other companies live better lives, be more conscious, be more compassionate, while still being high performers. So that's what I'm up to in the world.
Well, I think a lot of business people would say, wait a minute, this is totally contradictory. How can you be compassionate and considerate? And I mean, those are things you think are in the workplace, but in reality, kind of they don't always exist.
You
So,
are absolutely right. And I'm not sure if I would say most, it's hard to kind of tell, but you definitely see the full spectrum of people, the full spectrum of people who don't act compassionately. It's around us all the time, and people who do. So there's some science to back this up. I'll reference this in a few different ways. The first one, I'll reference it at the individual level. Adam Grant, who's a Wharton professor and talks about lots of things in the world, wrote a book, I don't even know how long ago, 10 years ago maybe, called Give and Take. And he breaks up the world's workers into a spectrum. On one end, selfless givers, and on the other hand, takers. Right? So in a negotiation, if Bruce and I are in a negotiation, a selfless giver just gives Bruce the pie, right?
yeah,
And
right.
a taker would just take the whole thing, right? And so he discovers that in the world of work, takers do better than selfless givers, which is a bummer if you're into, humanity. But he goes on to discover another class of workers, which he calls otherish, like the opposite of selfish, otherish. And so these people are givers at heart, but they're not selfless givers. They're looking out for themselves too. They're solving for the whole, both themselves and everybody else. He discovers that these workers are the most successful of anybody at work.
Wow.
So think about that. Now, this makes sense in our relationships too. You imagine, like, think about your primary relationship, your marriage or your daughter or father or whoever. In any person-and-person relationship, you think, okay, well, my goal in this relationship is I want to be happy. Yeah, makes sense. If we take the approach that in order for me to be happy, I insist on getting 100% of what I want. Now, is that the recipe for those of us who have been in any relationship? Is that the recipe for happiness? No, it's not. We learn over time that it's a dance, and 50-50, or when the whole is happier, then I'm happier too. Now, that's at the individual level. This works at the company level as well. From 20 years ago to now, the book Firms of Endearment and later Conscious Capitalism, Raj Sisodia and the teams that wrote those books, found that companies who take care of all of their stakeholders, not just their shareholders, but they create balance for all of their stakeholders, are 14 times more profitable than the S&P average.
It's a big
That's
number.
1,400% more profitable than the
Wow.
S&P average.
That's a really big number.
A really big number. So what does it mean to have balance? Well, so yes, I have to have a good business model to stay in business, so I'm taking care of my shareholders, but I'm also taking care of my employees. I'm creating a great place for them to do their work, because in these days, in the information age, employees are by far a company's biggest asset. And so when employees are at their best, the company's going to be great, get the most out of that particular resource. And we're taking care of our customers, right? Not just lip service, but providing them true long-term value. So when we can create a balance of these three things, that to me is conscious business. That to me has compassion at the roots of it. And that to me is how you build a successful business, a successful life, a successful society.
So repeat for me the three items, the three things.
Yeah.
I love three things.
Sure. It's a balance of all of our stakeholders. So the stakeholders are, yes, our shareholders, the people who invested in us, the money,
Yeah.
whoever that goes to.
Yeah.
If you're a small business, it's you. You're the shareholder. The second one is our employees, the people who do the work. And the third is our customers. And then more broadly beyond that, it's the community or the broader environment that we live in. Right? So that could be locally or it could be globally. But in general, when we're solving for the whole instead and the balance of the whole, then we're doing good things.
So let's take that and translate it into the commercial real estate world. Just for example, one of the podcasts I most recently did was with Jay Greenberg out of San Francisco, who is a very successful multifamily broker.
Yeah.
And at the end of the podcast, I asked him basically, how do you stay successful? And he basically said, I'm in service to my customers.
Yeah.
And I thought that is pretty much contradictory to a lot of the commercial real estate brokers I know.
Yeah.
They are, pretty self-serving, rah-rah, closers, all that.
You think of this as playing the long-term game. And so that gentleman sounds like he was playing the long-term game.
Definitely.
So I'm not a commercial real estate expert, but let's take a couple scenarios. Let's say that the market is super tight and you're able to get, then occupancy rates are, 0 point something percent. And so you're able to get whatever you want for those rentals. And you could jack up the prices by 50% or 100% or 500%. Because you know that they don't have anywhere else to go. And so you take a customer that's been working for you for a long time and you just stick it to them. Like you'll know that they'll pay it, but you just stick it to them because you can. Right? You can.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, right. You've got the authority or the low vacancy rate.
But think about that. Thinking about coming from an attitude of, I'm going to get as much as I can out of this rental. Right? Or it's like, well, I need to stay competitive. I'm going to raise my rates because that's what the market is doing, but I'm not going to raise them as much as I could, right?
Right.
Because this customer is going to call me 3 years from now, or 6 years from now, or 9 years from now, when the market is soft. And he's going to remember this interaction, and he's going to choose me, or he's going to choose somebody else. So if we approach it as I'm solving for the whole, it's a balance of me and the other person, then over time, over the long run, it's going to be in our favor.
Yeah, no, I just ran into that scenario half an hour ago. Do we, in a 10-year lease renegotiation, do we do fair market value, or do we do 95% of fair market value? Do we have a 103% cap on the most recent year's rent? All those kind of little factors that I'm sure sound very particularly unfamiliar perhaps to you, Scott, but to the audience that we're talking to, it's like, okay, so what do you choose here? What's the best course what's the win-win here?
Right. And then I'm guessing at least, that there's more than just the contractual things that keep customers coming back to an agent or a broker or a firm, right? All things being equal, people want to work with people that they like, that they enjoy, right? So even in a competitive environment, even if you can't offer the best rates, you could still get customers for the long term if they believe that you are treating them with dignity, you're treating them with respect. If they think that you have their back, they know that you have their back, they're going to come to you. And so over the long term, this is how you build a successful business and stay in business.
Yeah, no, it's a critical factor. And I think a lot of brokers kind of miss that factor because they're just tied into the numbers. I got to close this many deals.
Yeah.
I got to talk to this many people. I got to, keep the flywheel going.
Yeah.
And it kind of ignores the fact that the flywheel takes a lot of compassion.
That's right. And look, this is not rocket science. It's super simple. But here's the shift that happens. The shift that happens is internally. When we, let's say as a broker or as anybody, if we're focused on our own needs, man, I got to close my number this quarter or this year. I got to do so many deals. I got to make my nut, whatever it is. Where's our focus? Our focus is on ourselves. If we just shifted the focus, and when we're in discussion with our customers, we're asking, what do you need? Like, how can I help? How can I be of service to you? Like the gentleman you said, he's in service to his customers. If we approach it from that place, a place of abundance versus fear or scarcity, at the highest level, you could say from a place of love instead of hate, or a place of love instead of fear, a place of generosity or generativity versus fear. Good things happen. Good things happen.
So
You'll see it in your own life. You'll see it, and you can sense it from other people on where they're coming at it from.
So can you give us maybe a little exercise of how, say you're in this anxiety mode, which
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody's experienced that ever before. So you want to get out of that mode. You want to get out of the me mode and kind of into the more graceful, compassionate mode. What might you do?
Okay, we'll do an exercise. But before we do that, I'll talk about why this works. Humans have a fear bias and we have a negativity bias. And here's why. There's these two little almond-shaped clusters in our brains called the amygdala. And these amygdala are scanning our lives for danger. They're scanning our lives and they're essentially saying, hey, Scott, this could kill you. This could kill you. Except the thing that this could kill me is like the email I got from a customer, or the kids screaming in the next room while I'm trying to do a Zoom call or whatever. Now, we evolved this way, right? This is how we stayed alive when we evolved on the savannah or wherever we were. But what I would say is alive is a low bar, right? Of course, all of us are alive. You see people on the streets that are alive, but it's a low bar. What we're looking for is whatever. In the work environment, it's high performing, but you want some sort of inner peace, or you want some sort of combination of high performing and inner peace. That requires more effort on our part than just alive. Okay? So how do we counterbalance it? Well, one thing, okay, I'll give you a couple things. One thing, the antidote to the amygdala, most people are familiar with the inner critic, right? This is the amygdala talking.
Yeah, right. Telling you, oh, no, you're not good enough, or this
Right.
is bad, or
Not good enough, not smart enough, maybe you shouldn't try that, whatever. The amygdala is looking at the, let's call it 50% of your life, which is wrong or broken or something that's not quite perfect. The antidote to that is to ask ourselves, what else is true? Or what else is good? So we get fixated on the amygdala, the story, and it's just a story. It's just one flavor of reality. We get fixated on the story. So you ask yourself in that moment, what else is true? I'll give you a simple example. My son is a fully launched young man now, but when he was 15, Wednesday night was trash night. It's when you took out the trash. And it was his only job. If you have teenagers, you can probably relate or have ever had a teenager. But every Wednesday night it was a battle because he just didn't do it. And so it would start at about 5 o'clock on Wednesday. It's like, hey, he's like, I know. It's trash day. I'll get it. And then, okay, I'm not going to say anything. But by 10 o'clock, he's going to bed and it's not done. And so either it's more of a battle or I'm going to take out the trash myself.
right.
And so ongoing, I work myself up and I think about, I get fixated on this one thing. I'm mad at my son because he won't take out the trash and all the other things that this means because it violates my values and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, he's got to respect the household. He's
Yeah.
got to do his job.
All the things.
Come on,
He's
you
going to
live
grow
here,
up and
you can do
not be
something.
properly trained, blah, blah, blah. So I ask myself, okay, what else is true? All right, well, what else is true is I love my son. What else is true? Like I could list 1,000 things that are good. And when we can do that, when we can see the whole picture, all of the data, all of the reality without judgment, this is true mindfulness, right? We sometimes think mindfulness is like, oh, when we do a meditation. No, mindfulness is when we see the whole picture without judgment. And then we can choose. Okay, so if we're in it, that's step one. It's a little trick we can play. What else is true? Step two is if we're in the pothole of life, right? And we can only see the negative, we feel this anxiety. Let's do a little practice. We'll try it here if you're game. So and as long as you're not driving, maybe try closing your eyes for just a second. Like this will be 90 seconds. You can close your eyes. Maybe take a deep breath. When you take a deep breath, we're just allowing the body to settle. We can put our hand on our heart. And just to let our shoulders relax, let our jaw relax. And when we do that, our mind can start to settle as well, like a snow globe that's been put down on a table. You're to start to settle. And then instead of the inner critic, we can say some nice things to ourselves. Something like, so you can say inwardly to yourself, something like, I am strong. I am compassionate. I have everything I need. And I am perfect just the way I am. Okay, on that last one, I know a lot of you are freaking out. You're thinking about all the ways that you as a human are broken and wrong. Forget all that. Think about it from your core essence, the real you, and try it again. I am perfect just the way I am. And then the last one is say your name followed by I love you. So I would say, Scott, I love you. But you try it with your own name. And yeah, feels weird. But say it again. Keep saying it until you can really receive it. And then allow a smile to come to your lips, a smile that comes from the inside. And that's it. And open your eyes. That last one I like as a contemplation, but I also like it as a day starter. When you're brushing your teeth or doing your hair or makeup or shaving, look at yourself in the mirror and say that. And yeah, it's weird at first, but over time, we build this inner strength. We build our own self-compassion. And when we build our own self-compassion, that gives us a chance of being compassionate with other people.
That I think that is so hard for a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard for me. I'm like, I love Bruce. I love you. Like, come on, you got to be
Yeah.
kidding
Do you want
me.
to be alive or do you want to be happy?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Your choice.
yeah, but I think with practice, like you say, there's the onion peeling or whatever you want to call it. You get to the layer where all of a sudden you go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, this isn't Bruce, I love you. This is something more than that.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
Now, I'm sure there's people listening who are like, I don't know about this whole thing. This seems counterintuitive to business. Remember what we talked about before. When we are in service of our customers, we are going to be more successful. When we are in service of the whole, we are going to be more successful. It's really hard to be in service of our customers when we live in a perspective of fear, because then we end up focusing on ourselves. And then we think short term and we end up being not as successful as we could be. But if we come from this place of abundance, where I already have everything I need, I'm good. I'm good. Now, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? Now our business can take off.
1,400% better for
Yeah,
those stat
that's right.
people out there.
That's right. 1,400%.
That's a big number.
It's a big number.
Well, Scott, unless you have some more fun things to talk about, have we missed anything?
Well, if you care to join me, my latest adventure, I started this community called Changing Work. So it's at changingwork.org. And it's a community for people who are interested in this type of work, conscious business, how to build yourselves as a leader. We have 3 different communities. One is for leaders, people leaders. One is for employees or individual contributors. And one is for practitioners like coaches and consultants. And it's a nonprofit. It's good fun. There's a lot of love in the room. Yeah. So come join us at changingwork.org. I hope to see you.
Changingwork.org. Well, I will look forward to looking that up. I have looked it up. It's a fun place to be. So I encourage everyone to go there and take a look at it. So thank you, Scott. And I'm sure we'll be talking down the road at some point.
Thanks for having me. Everybody have a great day.
You also, and we'll talk to you soon.
that's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.